besides the I think we're on. So, welcome everyone to the August 22nd, 2022 meeting of the Danvers School Committee. We will begin with our Pledge of Allegiance.
Yes, right.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. I'll read the Danvers Public Schools mission statement. The Danvers Public Schools is a dynamic community of independent learners dedicated to respect, responsibility, creativity, and the pursuit of academic and personal excellence. This meeting is being televised on the Danvers Community Access Television. Is anyone in the audience recording this proceeding? No. Okay. Thank you. So with that, let's go. It's a hot night. We'll try and move quickly with, if we're lucky, but we do have some business to cover. So let's start with the items of interest to the superintendent, school committee, and community. Do you have anything, Mary?
I do have an update on our 8th grade civics project. We have a group of students who are planning the block party, and that is actually coming to fruition, which is really exciting. So they have a date, August 31st, from 4 to 7 p.m., and it's going to be at the intersection, I think, Maple and Cherry Street, around that area for that evening. So the plans are still in the works, but we're excited to celebrate with them on August 31st.
Right. And this came from our the civics projects that our students worked on in 8th grade. So these are my two incoming freshmen who are helping put this together and working with some of the more experienced hands in town on this, and it could be a lot of fun. So I hope everybody will come out, and we look forward to that. Are there other items of interest from the school committee? No? Okay. I have one in that I have to express a mea culpa. The moderator, Pat Frazier, sent us a letter appointing Mike Landers, who some of you may know as to finish out Wayne Marquis' term as the representative to the Essex Aggie School Committee. And we should have voted that tonight. She asked us to put it in the agenda, and somehow it just slipped past us. The first meeting of the Essex Aggie Board is on September 8th. So at some point between now and then, I'm going to try and set up a special meeting. I'm hoping we can do it remotely. I don't believe the governor changed the emergency planning yet. So what I'd like to do is plan remotely, probably some evening around 7. But I won't make anybody come down unless we actually have to. It's really pro forma. I looked at the bylaws and the operational procedures of the school committee for the tech, and the town moderator appoints a person with the consent of the school committee. So we either say yes or no, but it's the town moderator's appointment, and typically we would defer. But having said that, we should discuss it and take a vote so that everything is in public and ready to go. But we'll set that up sometime before September 8th. And again, my apologies for not getting it on this agenda. And that's it for interests from the school committee. Anyone in the audience have any items of interest they wish to share? Diane does.
I do. Can we just really speak up tonight because the fan's blowing in and nobody over the side can hear anything?
Okay. Okay. Usually having a loud mouth is not a problem for me typically, but yeah.
I know, but tonight it is.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So with items of interest taken care of, let's move on to information from the superintendent.
Yes, tonight I'm very excited to introduce the new interim
Now, I know you're going to have to speak.
principal. Someone, my kindred spirit, I should say, Sarah Fitzgerald. She's been at the Riverside School for 18 years as a teacher, and she is stepped forward to be lead Riverside School for the next year. So we're really excited. Sarah's been working hard, hiring teachers and teacher aides the last month, and really getting the building ready to go for the first day of school. Sarah?
Great.
Good evening. I'm really excited about the opportunity at Riverside and, very familiar with Danvers and the mission, so I'm happy to carry that on as well.
Thank you for being here tonight. Mary speaks very highly of you, and I think you're going to have a great year. And I know that Mary, her team, and to the extent that we can, whatever support you need, we'll be here to help. So thank you and congratulations. Any comments or questions from the committee?
Well, congratulations on your new appointment.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
No, I mean, I know you have the support of the parents and the community over Riverside, so I think you have positive momentum heading into the school year, so that's good.
Thank you.
Oh,
There we
it is.
go.
Very good. Thank you. Okay.
Yes,
All
welcome.
right. That's perfect. Okay. That sounds good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah. All right. Back to the superintendent.
So next we have a little presentation on the opening of schools for this school year. But before we do that, I want to share with you some the work we did this summer with some of our summer programs. So we had two kind of categories of summer programs. One is our enhanced academics with the Danvers Rec Falcons program, and the other category is special education extended year services. Unfortunately, Lynn O'Neill was not able to be with us tonight, so she will be giving us a report on the extended year services in September, which she's here with us. So as we move forward, we had a project-based learning kind of work that was being done to enhance the Falcons program. We had sessions in the morning at the elementary level. They did a program called Engineering is Elementary, and they kind of aligned their engineering topics with the themes that the Falcons had. They have weekly themes for the rec program, and the teachers were able to align the engineering program with that, and the students worked on these units throughout that year. So you can see that they did a lot of STEM learning, they learned the engineering design process, and they did a lot of collaboration and creativity in their work. So their attendance was very good. So these were the numbers by week of students that worked with our elementary teachers, and they found that they had the following highlights: that the students were very engaged in the challenges. They worked to become engineers by working through that process. Some of them, it was their favorite part of the day. Last year, I don't know that anyone would have said that when they were just doing reading and the content of reading and math. So the project-based learning really made a change for them. We also had middle school students. So we worked with the rising 6th graders, 7th graders, and 8th graders at the beginning of the summer program. And it was self-developed units by the teachers that kind of directly aligned with the themes of the rec program. And they really worked to integrate the social emotional skills into the academic, the project-based learning. The attendance, though, at this program was not very well attended. I think it comes from middle school age students taking different types of camps and not really attending the Falcons program. So as in the last couple of weeks, we were able to make adjustments and take rising 5th graders in, and the 5th graders found it better to be with the middle school age group because some of the work they were doing was a little bit young for their age, they felt like in the earlier. So that in the end that worked out well. So and then the program teachers also gave us a few little recommendations for increasing our attendance maybe in the next summer program. So that, and then here's some pictures from the theme work that they did at the middle school. So you can see one of the last weeks was superheroes. So they got to visit the police and the fire station. So here's a picture with them at the fire station. Every week there was a field trip with Danvers Rec. So kids got to go on a field trip, and we helped fund some of those trips for the kids. So, and I thank Nick Campione and Shannon Kofi for really helping us with that integration. They really made it a seamless. The first year was like a little bit more separate, but this year it really kind of worked well and we're integrated together.
Great.
All right. So if we're moving on to the opening of schools, this week really starts our big kickoff to the school year. Today we had an administrative retreat in the morning. Tonight we have our first school committee meeting of the year. Tomorrow another day of retreat. And then Wednesday, we have our new teacher orientation, or we're calling it now new employee orientation. So we're including teacher aides this year as well in our training for a full day. Our staff return on August 31st for 3 professional development days before the school year begins. So they come on August 31st for their first day, September 1st for their second professional day. We have the weekend off, and then they're back on Tuesday the 6th. Then on the Wednesday the 7th, the students return. So it's going to be an exciting day on September 7th. And then a reminder to families that the first 3 days of school are early release days. So they will have lunch and then be released after that. So we'll follow the early release schedule. We've done some summer work as administrators. We have lots of meetings. We try to take as much of July off as we could, and back though in August and really doing a lot of meetings getting ready for the school year. And at this point, actually, I'm going to have Jim and his technology team have been working on Chromebook distribution. So I'm going to have Jim kind of give you a report on how that is going so far.
Great.
Good evening, everyone. Jim Sullivan, Director of Technology. Very excited. This is a new lease year for the middle school. Actually, grades 5 through 8, we're all able to get brand new Chromebooks this year. So we've been actually handing them out this past week. New inbox to grades 6, 7, and 8. We've deployed about 2/3 of them so far. We are scheduling and adding a couple of additional days for students, for families who may have been away or missed their pickup day for the self-guided tour days that are coming up on the 29th and 30th. I believe Mr. Norton will be sending out some information about that to families so that they have the details on when they can stop by and pick those up during those self-guided tour days. We also handed out Chromebooks to grade 9 as well, and the new students that are coming into the high school. So we're going to have, we've already handed out some of those. We're also going to have an additional day on the new student orientation on the 25th, Thursday. So we'll be here as well handing those out. For any of the families who, for whatever reason, they can't attend those days, don't panic. We'll be able to hand out Chromebooks on the first day of school at your school. So we'll we'll make sure everybody gets what they need. And we're also going to be deploying new Chromebooks to the 5th grade as well. And all of the elementary students will be getting their Chromebooks over the first couple days of school when the school year kicks off. So we're in full, pretty much 24/7 Chromebook mode, but we're making sure everybody gets what they need, and I think it's been going very well. So,
Great.
thank you.
Great. Thank you for the update.
Thanks, Jim. Great.
I'm sorry, any questions or concerns from the committee? No? We all good? All right.
Right, and then finally, we have, we're kind of starting the school year out with some orientations. So grade 9 students are coming on Thursday, the 25th, and they will have a shortened half day of orientation. Kindergarten will have orientation on August 30th from 8:30 to 9:30 at each of the individual schools. And then Holton Richmond is having self-guided tours on August 29th and 30th, as Jim just mentioned. All right, so those are like the little details of the opening of schools. So now I'm going to move into kind of talking to you about what we're planning to do as a school district at the start of schools and give you a quick overview. So our focus for the school year is really continuing on that theme of relationship building that we had last school year, and we're going to focus on developing that sense of belonging for staff and students in our school district. So a sense of belonging really is that you feel like you're seen, valued, affirmed, and connected to the school and to the district. And what we liked about this slide here was there's some interesting indicators that help you understand how you might approach measuring developing that sense of belonging. So, looking at the engagement in school and school-based activities, pro-social interactions between students, adults, and families, the motivation to learn, positive relationships, and attendance at school. So I think as we move on to later parts of the agenda, you're going to see some of these indicators playing out in our school improvement plans and the district improvement plan. We're really focusing on some of the surveys that we've been doing with students. So at the end of the MCAS, there's a survey for students, and that data comes out, and it's called the vocal data. And we've done some work at looking at that this school year and kind of looking at how we can make improvements in students' responses in that survey. And a lot of the prompts that students are getting have to do with how they feel their belonging, how they feel in their learning community. So we're going to look at that data and use that to help us measure that understanding of sense of belonging. So in the past couple of years, we've really been working on with teachers to build relationships with students and doing relationship building activities. And it kind of fits with this quote that we used last year. The quote is that inclusivity in the context of teaching and learning does not simply mean that you are allowed to be present here. To be included means that we have changed ourselves and our practices to make here a place where you can thrive. So meaning that everyone belongs, because we've done our work as adults to understand how to be inclusive and how to really develop stronger relationships with our students. So with that, a few members of our school community, our elementary, middle, and high school, were able to attend a workshop calling Developing a Sense of Belonging by Learn Launch Institute. And it's a group that the Department of Ed uses a lot to provide training for school districts. And they presented this framework that very much resonated with us when we were in it. So it really captures the work that we're doing as a district. So we have 3 categories of that work that they have in this framework. That one kind of pillar or foundation of this work is to build relationships. So you build relationships between students, you build them adult to students, and you build them adult to adult. A second pillar is to value and affirm diverse identities. And as you know, we've done work in that in the past school years, but it's really working on that inclusive environment, having that play out in our curriculum and our materials, and in our district and school policies. And the connection I'll make there is a committee that Robin is on with us, the Culture Responses Practices Leadership Academy, CPRLA, and they started teaching us how to use an equity toolkit to kind of help us develop district and school policies. And then finally, the third pillar is to create opportunities for engagement, and that is around the student engagement and having that engaged student. And that would be working on student voice and choice, providing relevant and meaningful learning experiences, and having school-based activities and traditions. So I think, as you can see, we've already started to do a lot of this work last school year, and we will continue to build on that as well in the coming year. And I think you'll see that playing out in our school and district improvement plans. And then just in case you think like we're building too much, like working too much on the social emotional and the building relationships, this is kind of how it plays out in academics. So this is that formative assessment for results cycle. We call it the FAR cycle that you've heard lots of teachers talking about when they come to present. And this is the work of teaching in the classroom and delivering lessons and units. So one is to set clear objectives. That's step one, is setting lesson objectives and goals. And if you can see in the chart up above, it's kind of the messages that we're giving to students when we're doing that work. So there's that connection between that sense of belonging, those relationship skills, and the academic work that we're doing. So then after, setting those goals with students, we kind of check to see if they understand what they're learning, and we do that by infusing formative assessments, and we're like helping them understand that we're trying to figure out what you understand and what you don't understand, and then help you fix what you're not understanding. So that's what step 3 is to like analyze those results from kids and kind of help them on step 4, help them take action so they can fix any kind of mistakes or misunderstandings that they have. So that's kind of how it works with academics. All right. So with all that said, those are all like frameworks that we have. And so for the district goals, we have 3. The first one is kind of that safe and supportive learning community, and it is feeling like safe that you belong, but it's also safety as far as school safety. So you'll see when you look at the actions in the plan that we've taken safety into consideration, as well as building an emotionally safe environment for students. Goal 2 is around using the formative assessment data that we just talked about in that cycle, really working to make adjustments to our instruction to meet the needs of all kids so that they can meet grade level standards, because that's the key, is that having those high expectations that everyone can meet their grade level standards. And then in the end, the purpose is so that kids feel that as teachers we believe in them, and in turn that makes them believe in themselves and their ability to learn. And then finally, our third goal is around the diversity, equity, and inclusion, is to build relationships, to value and affirm diverse identities, and create opportunities for engagement of students and their families. So that our work would be done under that. Under each one of those pillars, you're going to see that each of the schools also have a goal in those areas. All right, so that's kind of like a big overview of what the district is doing this school year. And I thought that also as part of opening of schools that we should revisit the safety protocols that we had in place that we started in June, and we gave an update at our June meeting, but I thought I would turn it over to Adam and kind of remind everyone about the protocols.
So just as we had in June, we have a renewed focus on school safety and just making sure that our families, our staff, our students all feel safe and secure in their learning environments. We're focusing on sort of enhanced security routines, and then also investing in more equipment and technology as identified as needs in our district. We're continuing with our enhanced lockdown procedures. These are well vetted and detailed. A lot of time and effort went into this work. And again, broadly, there's four main components that we always focus on. There's the enhanced lockdown approach. There's evacuation when appropriate, always stressing communication of information, and countering and distracting when needed. So those components are sort of the main parts of our approach. We always hold drills both in the fall and the spring, and we work closely with the fire department and the police department to conduct those drills. The police come and walk around and are really active in assessing how each classroom, how each area of the school does. So we really value that partnership in those practicing opportunities. We're going to continue to really stress entry and exit protocols. So this is something that you really just have to maintain and stay on people. So really stressing that exterior doors are locked at all time in all schools, making sure that that's the culture of our buildings, and that includes with students. Visitors have to use the Raptor system, so when they check in, they give over their identification. That's run into the system. Our greeters will check it. They have to sign in. And then lastly, this will feel a little different to our families this year, so we really want to stress this, and we appreciate their anticipated cooperation. Our greeters are really going to be using the intercom system to question who you are, why you're at the building, what's the purpose of your visit. We know that can slow things down, that can feel a little more impersonal, especially if you're coming because your child is sick or a meeting. But we just hope our families understand that we just see this as another layer to make sure that the people we want in the building are the people that are at the door. So we appreciate everyone's cooperation. That's kind of a new routine that our greeters and our administrative assistants are going to be using. So again, we ask for everyone's patience and understanding. And then in terms of exterior doors, we felt like this is a really important part to emphasize. So again, talking with staff, talking with students, making sure that, we're coming in the doors that a greeter can unlock for you and not using other doors. Making sure that we're not propping doors. Sometimes when you have 20 kids, the quicker routine might be to do that, but we're really going to emphasize taking, the appropriate way back into the buildings. And then another routine, working with our partners in DPW, part of the custodian's daily routine, and they started this right at the end of the year, they're going to do multiple exterior door checks throughout the day, and they're going to log that information so that, when we do find a mistake or we do find a part of the routine that's not being adhered to, that we can address it. This isn't a perfect system, but the more information we have and the more eyes and ears we have on exterior security, the better. So those are some things that we're really emphasizing to start the year with our security. And then in terms of equipment and technology, all the cameras will be in place at the front doorways that have cameras, and in some buildings at other doorways. Access will be controlled using the Raptor system as well. Classroom doors, we're really encouraging teachers to keep them locked and use the magnets so that if they need to quickly close their door, they can do that. We have applied for a grant that we haven't heard about yet that would allow us to purchase more security cameras, more technology. We're also moving forward with 2 projects that we want to highlight. We're going to be adding a lobby camera to the Thorpe School so that we can really track visitors once they enter that school. That school has some unique lobby features that make it. This camera will allow us to monitor that better, and we're also adding another fob door so staff can use their fob to key into a door at the Great Oak School, which will allow more efficient but safer access in and out of the building. So those are projects that haven't happened yet, but we're hopeful to have those done very soon and a part of our approach as we get the school year going. So those are just some things, again, that we're looking at for safety and technology. We will have our upcoming annual required meeting with fire, police, and DPW as well. So we'll be doing that prior to the school year. That's something we do every year as part of our requirements. So that meeting will be coming very soon. And as always, we're really appreciative to our close relationships with the fire department and with the police department. They're really partners with us, and it's really a strong relationship that we really value.
Great. Are we ready for questions, Mary? All right. Any questions really about anything we heard about the opening of school, the plans going forward for the social, emotional, and of course the safety?
Okay. I will start with the safety. So I don't know if the administrators or if you all got to read the Robb Elementary report, kind of the what went wrong thing, if that was shared. But I know one of the big things was when everyone came, there was no pinpointing who was supposed to do what. So I'm assuming that when you meet with the DPW and the fire and police, God forbid something happened, there is, because I know that was one of the things that came out, no one knew who was kind of in charge.
Right. So,
yeah.
I think that Robb Elementary presented sort of what is not the approach here in Danvers, and many of us have gone through incident command training. So, really, in an emergency, the appropriate agency will take over the initial incident command. So, if it's a safety issue, it would be the police. If it was more of a fire or a structural issue, it would be the fire department. And the police's practice is to respond immediately. I can't speak to why Uvalde responded the way they did, but I can tell you from doing many of these trainings that the accepted practice in this area is to immediately enter and address the situation upon arrival. So I think for us it's just a reinforcement of our practices, and the police, Chief Lovell could certainly speak to it, but I don't think what happened in Texas represents the response we'd get from law enforcement in this area.
Great, because I know that that's probably a stressful point for families, so I think that's great to hear, because I'm sure a bunch of people read a bunch of things about it.
Sure.
Okay, so Mrs. Wormers, about the strategic plan. Let me just find it quickly. So it's like goal number 2. Well, first of all, I'm really happy that we get to focus back on the teaching and learning. We don't have to worry about COVID and all the protocols, so that's nice for everyone. We can enter the school year like less stressed about that. But I really liked in the second goal, because it really talks about like it's like the productive struggle piece, right? Like, and I think it's really important for students and for families to realize like it's not necessarily just about the grades, it's really about the learning. So I think really like the students need to like buy into that, but also the family. So like it's okay if your child didn't get an A, because it's really is the kid learning. That's really what we want. And then I don't know if this was already thought about, but I think that too, when you're talking about like the data meetings and stuff, and maybe this happens at some of the schools, but really thinking about utilizing those can be a great place, like the staff meetings, to really look at the formative assessments. I know sometimes staff meetings can kind of be like, this is what we have to do, like kind of like the housekeeping things, but like those are great times, and that might get more buy-in from the staff. It's not just like, oh, it's a staff meeting, we have to talk about these procedures. It's like, no, like we're going to talk about teaching and learning, because we're all educators. Yeah.
That model is already in play. for us.
Awesome.
So we do that during our early releases, and now as we are doing a lot of the, relationship building and the sense of belonging work, we're trying to balance like our early release time with doing some more of that work, and then we have PLCs. So we have PLCs that have like 3 to 4 teachers in it. So each one, and what we do is we train each one of them, a facilitator from each one of those groups 5 times a year after school, and so they come together and we kind of set goals at each of those meetings for the meetings that will happen in between. So and that's a good way for us to be able to check in with the PLC facilitators and do that. But also during some of the early release time, we do have groups break into their PLCs to kind of apply the learning. So I think it is a good balance.
All right, thank you. And then the new staff orientation, I mean, we've talked about this on different ends, like Danvers has a really strong one, and I'm so happy that you extended it to paraprofessionals, because honestly, I don't know any district that does, maybe they do, but those are such integral staff members that often kind of get left out with any professional development. So that's awesome. So thank you.
Yeah, in the past, we kind of just gave them, talked to them about benefits and a few
Yeah.
expectations, but they are, as you said, integral to the running of our school, and we relied so heavily on them, especially last school year. We really appreciate all the effort they gave us. And this school year, they'll be in for our professional development training, and they're doing the work with the teachers. They'll be with the teachers all day long, learning about the new reading program, learning about our social emotional curriculum. So they really are there doing the work with the teachers in partnership. So
Great.
excited about that.
Thank you.
Alice.
Well, it's evident that everyone's had a pretty busy summer, for sure. But first I do want to acknowledge, I think our summer programs through Danvers Rec particularly, they're very strong, and our family has always had great success attending them. I do think the middle school, 5th grade middle school issue that you were talking about in terms of attendance, and I do wonder if there's a way that we could replicate a little of what Essex Tech does over the summer in terms of opening it up to certain grade levels to come into their school to experience some of their programs, if that would be something our district could explore, particularly for the middle school students, just because we do have such a diverse program of academics offered here that I don't think still our community knows about. So if we could even find those opportunities to do that. I have similar feedback on the goal number 2, because my eye went to, and I think you brought it up, Robin, in terms of the standard, right? The grade level standard. And I think I'm hearing from parents also who don't feel like their students are being pushed enough. So my question to you, Mary, is then how does this program and these core values kind of address those students who do need more, who come home and tell their parents they're bored at school?
Right. And that is the PAR cycle. They are supposed to be, it's the action that you take should be extending, and that's the E part of firm action on the 4th step. So extending that, and teachers are supposed to be trying to think about as they differentiate and have to kind of help do some interventions with kids that might not be meeting that grade level standard or that goal that we set for the lesson. For others, we look for them to extend that.
And that's like more small group class,
that's a
right? In the
small group
classes, right?
differentiated instruction. Yes,
Right.
it definitely has. So I think that, in different areas it plays out differently, but I have been in math classrooms where that definitely has been happening.
Okay. You mentioned the vocal data from MCAS. What is that?
At the end of, depending on what grade they're in, at the end of the last test that they're taking, there's a survey for students that asks them several questions about like how they feel about their school, about their learning, and they report that data out to us. So that has been a couple years that they've been doing that, but this year because of all the relationship work and the work that we've been doing, the data has such meaning for us, so we really have taken a look at that. And
so when will that be released? When the student MCAS scores are released? And parents don't receive that.
No, they
correct?
don't receive that.
Just
But
goes
we
to the
could do a
district.
presentation for you on what that data looks like.
That would be nice
Because I
to
think
hear.
that's what I'm getting at a little bit, because I sit here and I'm like, oh God, this is awesome. Danvers rocks. But I think it's where the data to kind of, how are we measuring up? How are we performing? What are we measuring against? And if we have student data, and I know that we surveyed the 8th graders who weren't attending the high school, like I'd love to see some of those findings, but just overlaying some of this data so that we can kind of better understand where we're excelling, where perhaps we're falling short. And even overlaying that with community data. I don't know, I'm just not getting into like an analytics project, but I just feel like we have a lot of opportunity to dive a lot deeper into our students' perception and successes at the schools.
We definitely will. So we can put that presentation together. And on a quick glance of it, we're right in those ranges that are, as I said in the current standings, so that we are, for the most part, in that, fees. I can't think of the range. It's called. It's a somewhat favorable climate. We were there a lot. Then some of them we were at somewhat favorable, but for the most part we were right there and at where the state average was.
So is it offered to the middle schoolers and up? Is
Elementary,
that what it is?
grade 4, grade 5, grade 8, and grade 10.
Okay.
So it's a really interesting data to look
It's
at.
just interesting even to track the trend to kind of see where perhaps something might happen too.
Right, and some of the prompts are a little different because obviously at the elementary versus high school, but you can understand the through line.
Yeah.
Of it, so we could kind of put some responses together. So that's why in the improvement plan I pulled out actual prompts that I thought would be interesting that fit with the goal that we were measuring that we could look at.
And then the formative assessments, if parents want to pick up the phone and call their teacher to have a discussion about these formative assessments of their student, they can do so, correct?
Yes, everyone's using those. Yeah, it's by their PLC they decide kind of what kind of assessments they're going to do. Most teachers in any lesson, they should be doing formative assessments in the lesson to see if students are where they are in their understanding as they're delivering the lesson.
Yeah, I think I've always had really good conversations with my children's teachers about that, and I do encourage more parent involvement and engagement with the teachers, because it's not that the teachers are holding anything back. No. They want to have these conversations.
They can share that student work with them at any point.
I love the engaging students to find their voices, or like making if there's more of that we can do, or even just hearing more about the programs that encourage that, that kind of struck me too, because I do feel like, what's the sense of teaching these students about their identity if they're not having a voice about it as well, right? So just giving them the confidence to do so.
Right, exactly. And more so it's a natural fit at the high school level. That's when they are really exercising that voice, but trying to get it done at the elementary and middle school as well.
All right, great. That's all.
Thank you, Alice. Jeff?
Yeah, I really like the sense of belonging as the focus for the school year. It does look like there are a lot of threads that go through that, and I know there's a lot to unpack with all of this. The one question I did have, something came up on, I think it's slide 11, it talks about motivation to learn. Can you talk a little bit about how, you know, if we're able to succeed, and slide 14 I think is fantastic as well, particularly, you know, we're assessing your work, not your worth. So talk a little bit about how in the past, and my sense is this is more of a middle school issue, but maybe it's elementary and high school as well, the motivation component in the past maybe has not been there, it's been difficult. What will, if we succeed in this concept of fostering a greater sense of belonging, how will that help motivation?
We get back to what Alice was saying, that voice and choice. So when the students we give them options to like choose, have some choice in the work that they're doing, and then also expressing their views on things, that helps the engagement process. If you kind of connect the lessons to like the real world and things that they're experiencing, we find that motivation in there as well. It sometimes goes to kind of what we were doing in the summertime, like the project-based learning, where you're doing projects that have like an end goal that the students are trying, or a problem that they're trying to solve, and that they are working together to solve that problem. That helps with engagement. I think that we interestingly this summer had a conversation about attendance, and attendance at the classroom and in the school is important with that, because if you're having engaging lessons and curriculum that they like, that they enjoy, they're going to be at school and be here to do that work. So we have to make it the learning environment one which they want to be in and be ready to learn.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept, because I feel like we've talked a lot in the past about activities and interests and different things like that attract you to the school and sort of bring you in as a group. But I like this concept because it takes the academic side of it. So if you want to have students engaged and motivated, yeah, that's great if you're in a lot of the activities and the specialties, that makes sense. But the real key is, you know, when it happens in the classroom and they're motivated from that, you know, that's what I'm interested in hearing about. And those were several good examples, right? If you're able to choose, if you have special projects, if you have debates and discussions, then that brings it home and sort of says, okay, this is how we're going to engage and sort of make this real. So that's good.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that we saw, like you saw some very public examples of that through the civics projects, the Danvers High kids that came, the 8th graders that presented. The DECA kids that go out and do those projects. I mean, those kids, like for DECA, they're here after school, they're here before school. On like, you know, on vacation weeks, you'll be in school and you'll see some students working in those classrooms. So that's called motivation to learn. They're showing up when school isn't in session or it's over, and they're still here to do their learning. So if we can get that in our regular education classrooms too, that would be amazing. And not that DECA isn't regular education, it's also a club along with a curriculum, but we're looking for that, though.
Thank you.
Gabe.
I don't know if this comment will make me unpopular with kids, but at least I love everything I've seen here. The reinforcement, the support, you know, staying engaged with the students. My big question is engagement with the parents and what reinforcement mechanisms we can have. And speaking specifically about elementary school kids, I know we're not big on homework, but how can parents stay engaged in real time to catch where their children are falling behind in regards to mathematics or reading? And if there's any thought about doing something to reinforce that. Because I've heard from many parents who are like, well, my kid doesn't have homework. The only time I know they're struggling is when the teacher calls. Can we get ahead of that? Is there something we can think about?
We can work as an elementary team. We can look at that. I think that you know, our policy of homework was focused on reading being the most important thing that children can do. So that 20 minutes of reading every single night is sacred. I know a lot of people think like, oh, because there's no like output, like that you're returning back to school, that it's not important. But it is the single most important thing you can do with your child, is to read with your child, read to them, read with them, have them read to you. That is the most important thing early on. So that's where our focus was. And then as you went up into the intermediate grade levels, that's when we started including math homework, because they can spend more time to do that work. So that's kind of been our philosophy on homework, but we can revisit as an elementary team to kind of.
No, thank you for that. It's definitely something that was top of mind.
Gabe, just to add, like, there's been a lot of studies that come out like over the years that, like, the thing with homework, it's become like a compliance thing. Like, the kids are doing it to do it, but like, do they need to do it? So like the reading part at the elementary is great because it could take a kid, like one kid could read 3 books in 20 minutes, but one kid might read 1 book in 20 minutes. So it's like they're really working at their own pace, and it becomes like more of like a practice than like, okay, did Gabe do his homework? Well, because it's like focused on the learning.
Right.
So
Well, it
just to
doesn't-
add, yeah.
Right.
But
So it
yeah,
doesn't necessarily have to be like the definition of homework, but it's like,
practice at home.
what are we working on in class? And maybe it's not an
Yeah.
assignment that they bring back, but something that they're required to bring home to the parent. So when the parent gets engaged, they can at least know that the kids are keeping up. But no, your response is absolutely great. And then my second question is a follow-up on the security component. And this goes specifically to, I love all the work that we're doing in regards to safety and security, but I want to understand if there's anything being done on family or parent communication, because these things happen. They're frequently practiced within the buildings. But what is the action that will be taken to inform parents or families if something is happening? I think we need to really think about how do we get the parents involved, even if it's a test message. This is emergency broadcast for Danvers. Really get parents ready to take in that kind of message as opposed to getting a message the day of and going into panic mode. I think we need to start to have, communication with the families and practice that so families know how to respond and stay out of the way of, safety.
So I think one of the hardest concepts to really internalize with safety is that no situation is the same. So that as much as in education, we love a plan, we love a routine. We're all creatures of habit. The biggest sort of conceptual leap, I think, for many people is just that you can't have a lockdown plan for a safety incident because most likely it won't apply. So in terms of communication, I think the hard part is that with social media, information is going to move faster than those that have control or ability that are in the situation. So I think our approach would be to get information out via ConnectEd as quickly as we can. People should know that they're probably going to hear in a situation where, if there is a safety issue, it's going to flow fast and furious. And so I think, we have to be ready for that. Parents need to understand that we will work as quickly as we can to get key information out. We talk about things, we have plans in place for reunification sites. We have plans in place for where we would stage the press. We have plans in place for where we would evacuate an entire school to. So those things are all planned and available, but it's hard to give you 100% step-by-step answer in terms of what we're going to do and how we're going to communicate it until we're in the situation.
No, absolutely. It's more of a suggestion, but I think parents do need some clarity because there will be noise, and that's the danger in those situations, is getting too much information from all the wrong places.
Right.
When something happens, the parents should know, go to this portal, or wait for this specific information coming from this specific office or person. That doesn't mean they're going to ignore anything, and it doesn't mean anything's going to be perfect. But among all the noise, there does have to be a single point of clarity. And I'm not saying it's something you guys should have today ready, but seriously think about it, because if you think about, the most recent incidents that have happened, all the noise from media, social media, calls from classrooms. I mean, there's going to be panic, there's going to be disorganization, but parents should know up front where should they go to get a single source of information. And maybe that's something that you coordinate with the police or first responders, but it's something to consider. I mean, because I'm sitting here telling you it's not going to be perfect. We all know that. People are going to panic. But if we have something in advance, and even some test messages, when drills are done in schools, a mass email goes out to all parents. This is a test communication. This is where you'll be notified. This is where we'll tell you what's happening and where to go. It's just something to consider. So thank you.
Certainly. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you all. Those were some excellent questions. I just have a couple of comments. And the first is that for there are people out there who think somehow that social emotional learning is sort of a newfangled thing and we really don't need it, and we should be focusing only on the academics. And the truth is that with more and more students every year dealing with anxiety, with more stress in the world and the community, for students to be in a position to learn, you have to look at them holistically. Students at whatever age are people who have things going on in their home, in their community, in their family. And if you are plagued with other things before you actually get to the classroom, it's going to be awfully tough to learn. So for those of you who think this is just namby-pamby soft skills that don't matter, it contributes to actual learning. It's just like nutritional programs for students who might not be able to have a breakfast in the morning, or free lunch programs. All of those things try and take out a barrier to learning. So they're important, and it's important that we keep doing it. From the safety standpoint, sort of a similar comment. First of all, the focus on making sure that someone who shouldn't be in the building never gets in is the key. It just seems to me logically, once they get past that door and in the building, now you're in a reactive mode. So I think the focus on that is terrific. And again, for parents and other people's coming to the schools, all of us, right? How many times do you go now to a ball game or to a concert, and we all get in line and you take everything out of your pockets and they go through your bags. You can only bring a bag in that's this wide. And we all grouse about it, and I probably do too. But the truth is, there's very good reasons for it. And so if some of those types of things happen as we're trying to enter schools and we're questioning more, understand it's for a really good reason. So be patient with the staff and understand we're just trying to keep everybody, most especially your students, safe. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, and finally tonight we're going to do a quick, Adam's going to give a quick facilities update on the school buildings as we open schools.
So we first wanted just to begin by publicly recognizing our DPW. I can't remember a hotter summer, and most of our buildings don't have air conditioning, so that particular department's been working in really high heat temperatures, and so we really appreciate what they've done. At the end of each school year, we ask our schools to submit sort of a punch list of what do we need to get done over the summer, and then we meet throughout the summer with them to check in. We're at probably about 95% completion of all the requested maintenance and summer projects, so DPW's done a great job. We have a few last-minute projects that'll get done before the start of school, but we are confident that all the schools will be open and ready to go for teachers and then for kids. So thank you to DPW for all their work this summer.
Thank you. Any particular questions for Adam? No. Okay, thank you. I think we're on to unfinished business, Mary?
Yes. All right. So under unfinished business, the interim superintendent recommends the approval of the proposed 2022-2023 pre-K through 12 student parent handbooks for a second reading.
All right. So for second reading, this would be an approval and actually approve the proposed handbooks in final form. So first, I need a motion.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Is there any discussion on the topic?
I'd like to make a request on the student handbook.
Sure.
Something that's pretty specific, and I'll call it out. Specifically on the bullying section, I know you do call out Massachusetts General Law 370, Section 370 in regards to bullying. What I'd like to have added, and I'll read it in its full context here, is Section B, which specifically calls out rules around bullying. And again, we're calling out the entire section, but I think parents and students should see this in its full context in order to be compliant. It reads, bullying shall be prohibited on the school grounds property immediately adjacent to the school grounds at a school-sponsored or school-related activity, function, or program, whether on or off school grounds, at a school bus stop, on a school bus or other vehicle owned, leased, or used by a school district. And in general, it really states that any disruption to the education process or orderly operation of a school. So I did skip ahead there, but everyone should read that section B, and I think that should be specifically called out, so there's absolutely no lack of clarity on where bullying can occur, and to understand that there will be repercussions if that happens.
Are you reading this from the handbook or just the law?
It's in the handbook and it's in the law, so I'm reading it directly from the page.
What page is it on? I just want to be able to see.
Well, I'm looking at the website right now.
Oh,
but
okay,
I don't have
okay.
the book in front of me.
Okay.
But I specifically copied it out.
Okay.
Maybe some paraphrase, but section 370, part B.
That's directly from MGL.
Yeah.
That's from the law.
And it's referenced in the student handbook. I just think that section should be added to the handbook.
Okay, so it's referenced, but it's not actually
Not written out.
spelled out.
Yes, yes,
You want it spelled out?
yes.
Okay.
I think that's fair to families and students and teachers.
So everyone has a clear
Yeah.
understanding this is what it means.
And my understanding is the Attorney General specifically called out this area in her recommendations. on-
Actually, later on in the agenda, you're going to vote on the policy that that the AG has suggested that we add to our handbook. So when you vote on the policy, we're going to have to add in the revised changes, because the Attorney General's office on Friday afternoon sent us the revised policy, so we didn't have time to put it into our handbooks and read it. That's more on the discrimination, harassment, and sexual harassment policy and grievance procedures. So I will look to make sure that that MGA, what's the law that is in that as well. I was wondering if it's in our actual bullying policy on the website. I have to.
I don't think it is. I've looked and I've been tracking the edits.
Okay, so if it's not in our policy, then we probably this year in the policy committee might need to add that to our policy.
Okay, but I guess the question on the table is about adding it to the handbook. And do you have any objection, any reason why that shouldn't be added to the handbook?
No, I don't think so. I think what we were doing in the handbooks was actually taking what's in our policies and making sure they were explicit in our handbooks as well. So we can do that.
Okay, thank you.
So can I just,
Yeah.
this is what we're adding, right?
Yeah.
So the updated bullying policy is going to say the following. Bullying is prohibited on school grounds, on property immediately adjacent to school grounds, at school-sponsored events or school-related activities, at functions or programs, whether on or off school grounds, at school bus stops, on school buses or other vehicles owned, leased, or used by the school district, or through the use of technology or an electronic device leased or used by the Danvers Public Schools. So that's all going into the new bullying policy, JICFB.
Okay, so
I don't know
that
if
was
that
just released on
satisfies-
Friday. That's the
Yeah,
new,
so
okay.
that's- if
I didn't
that's-
see that version. That's absolutely perfect.
Okay,
Thank you.
so I think once that's in, then that'll reflect what you're citing.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Additional questions?
Okay, this is for Mr. Norton. So the homework policy in the middle school it says like 20 to 30 minutes per subject each night. So hold on, you could answer this, both of you. So my one kind of concern with that is like kind of what we talked about earlier, like it might take a kid 30 minutes to solve like 3 math problems, but they have like 20 to do, right? So like, instead of, do we have to put a time, or is it, because I just get nervous sometimes, like we don't want a kid's, if it's 20 to 30 minutes each night per subject, so they have 6 or 7, so that's like almost 3 hours of homework a night. That's a lot for a kid. And I wonder if we just take away the time, because it's really, again, like, what is the purpose of homework? And I think, as an educator, I've taught every level, like, I don't always give homework because sometimes it's not needed, right? So I get a little bit concerned with giving a time and expect it every night, because it's not always like, what's the purpose? Like, are we compliant, or is there a purpose behind the homework? And I don't want a kid to spend more than 30 minutes on my homework and they're not done and they keep going, because like at some point, like, it's unproductive at that point. So I don't know how you folks feel about that. I don't know how the teachers feel about that. I mean, you might get some pushback from parents, but I'm thinking as like a parent, I don't want my kids spending 3 hours in any grade level on homework. I don't know your thoughts about that. It was on page 11.
Sure. So traditionally in practice, I certainly don't think any teachers are feeling the need to assign homework because it says 20 to 30 minutes, in the handbook. I think if there's practice that is helpful to deepen the learning or continue the learning from that day, certainly, if it's beneficial in that regard, teachers are assigning it. I know teachers have always had policies where they've been really transparent with parents and caregivers and saying, we don't want your child spending more than 20 or 30 minutes than this. If your child is struggling, if they've given it an effort and they're just done, please write me a note, let me know that they've put in the effort, and we'll call it a night. So that's been the policy, certainly, of teachers at the middle school as long as I can remember.
So could we change it to, it says most teachers assign homework nightly. Students may spend an average of 20 to 30 minutes per subject each night homework is assigned. Could we just say something like homework may be assigned with the purpose of like enhancing learning, but like something like that, like, because I get nervous about a time and like nightly, because it's okay if it's not nightly. Like, it's okay if you have no homework that night. Like, the world's not going to end. It doesn't mean you're not learning. Like, so I'm just wondering if we could phrase it a little bit.
I'm reading it as it's the discretion of the teacher to do so.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it is designed to be as discretionary as possible.
Yeah.
And like my reading of it is like that it isn't like every night someone's going to get 30 minutes per assignment or 20 minutes per class.
Okay.
It is like, at the discretion of the teacher, they may get 20 minutes or 30 minutes of homework. And I think, to reiterate what Ms. Fierick was saying, the idea that, teachers want to see kids put in some effort to it, but not struggle all night at it. And I think, that can be a challenge for individual kids too. There are some kids that, can't put it down.
Yeah, like after, and then there's some, it's like after 40 minutes, I'm done. Like, I'm not doing anything else.
So I think that it's certainly something that we can think about the wording for, but I also think that it is meant to be at teachers' discretion. We can even clarify that better.
Yeah, me, because I was reading it as like, I have a kid and they're going to get at least 20 minutes of homework a night.
No, I also know the kids get it done during Rise too.
Right, that's okay. So that's fair. I just wanted to bring that up because I don't want a family or a kid to be like, oh my goodness,
Okay.
But maybe it's clear for families. If it's clear, I wouldn't change it.
It's certainly worth taking a look at and just making sure that it is meaning to say what we mean it to say.
Okay. Thank you.
We have to land, in fairness to the administration, we have to land on the handbook that has to go out at the beginning of school. But we could make changes midstream if we want. So.
Yeah, or maybe it's. If it's brought up at open house or whatever, like it's at the discretion, and we don't want your kid struggling for hours. Maybe there's not needed to change it all.
I think we hope that the teachers communicate as teams about what's going on in their classrooms. And, hey, I've got, I'm working on a complex topic. I'm going to be giving homework. Maybe the other teachers back off. But yeah, we don't want kids doing, like you say, 3 hours a night is, especially middle school, is not productive. I would agree with that. But I think we can trust, at least I trust the discretion of the staff to sort of handle that, Okay, other questions on the handbook?
I had a question. I think we're all kind of the same mindset with bullying, just because that's where we're hearing a lot of the comments coming from the community about. So I do appreciate the additional language being added to the handbooks to include like cyberbullying. I noticed that in one of them there was like contacting the police department. Is that something that's new that was not in previous, that's always been in the handbook?
Yeah,
So your practice is always, if you feel there's a crime that's been committed, you would report that to the police department.
I think where we're hearing from families is they don't believe schools are adhering to the handbook enough. So I just want, the handbook is here for a reason, right? Like, this is for all of us to kind of come together and hold both sides of the party accountable for when there are bullying instances. So, I recognize the additions that were added this go around to the handbook. So I thought that it was clear in terms of those additions to it. And the restorative piece, I think, was added as well, correct?
And Dusty just did I don't know, you both probably heard, like, the changes with all the bullying and, like, the like, detailed investigations, like, that. So I think that's going to hopefully resolve any, concerns people had.
All right. Other questions? No, okay. I think when it comes to going forward with the handbook, maybe this is a good time, as you're getting some feedback here, that assuming we approve this tonight, this is a good time to keep looking at, okay, are there midterm course corrections that we need to make? Because we can always send out a supplement. And the point you raise, Alice, about parents' expectations about the handbook, I think that probably comes from parents who feel like they've got a student who's bullied, they do all the right things, and there's really nothing happens to the offender, so to speak. And that can be an enormously frustrating thing. So, and the thing is, the handbook is not going to correct that. It's how we execute on what our policies are that are going to correct that. And that's the important part. I hear the same thing from folks. At the same time, I know every situation is different. And many times the people who contact us aren't fully aware of what's really happening. And so communication all around, to the extent we can do it, would help. But it's a real issue. It's a real issue.
Just to interrupt, I think that we're going to have to, once you vote on the policy later on tonight, we're going to have to implement and put that policy into our handbook. So maybe can we wait for a second reading for the next meeting till September?
If that works for you.
Or the special meeting that you're going to have.
With the special.
That sounds like a good idea, as long as it gives you time to do what you need to do. That sounds very sensible.
I mean, seeing that we just got the AG approved policy Friday afternoon, I think that would give us time to make sure that we have all our ducks in a row.
All right. So can we have a motion to table the approval of the handbooks until our next meeting?
So we could do the special meeting, then do we want to do it during the special
That's
meeting?
what I'm saying, next meeting.
So before maybe the school
September
begins.
7th,
Yeah.
Sure.
Motion.
He needs it. Well, and he needs it for September 8th before you need it before September 8th.
It'll be before September 8th.
Yeah.
Yep.
So motion to table
Next
Okay.
for the next, for the special meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. So all those in favor of tabling the second reading until our next meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Carries. All right, thank you all.
Right. Okay, moving on.
My computer's gone black. There you go. Okay, Mary, thank you.
The interim superintendent recommends the approval of the amendment to policy JFABD, homeless students and enrollment rights and services for a second reading.
Okay, this is again for a second reading and final adoption. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
second? Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. Is there any discussion on this policy? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Carries. All right, next up.
Up is the vote. The committee will vote on the MASC superintendent search contract.
All right, do we have a motion?
So moved.
All right, so someone is, Jeff, that means you are approving that we sign the contract with MASC for the superintendent search assistance, correct?
Correct.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
There is a motion and a second. I'm going to turn it over to Alice and Robin, or whatever they want to say
It's
about.
weird to.
Yeah, we didn't want to. We didn't want to.
So Robin and I have been in touch with several search offerings since the end of the school year, and received 3 different proposals, and we are making the recommendation to move forward with the MASC as our lead consultant on the superintendent search for Danvers. We'll give it a second to load up.
Sorry, I was asleep.
Perfect. So for those who aren't familiar, MASC is the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, and they're actually a leader in the search, I guess, for superintendents and other business professionals for districts. Robin and I were both very impressed by just their depth of experience. I mean, everyone that we've spoken to in other school districts even recommended working with them, those that have gone through a similar search. So they came highly recommended, and Robin and I spent some time with them and kind of just hearing what they can offer us. So in terms of what they will be providing us, because I think it's important for the community to understand that there will be involvement from various stakeholders within the community and the district. So they will help us with the establishment of timelines. There will be online surveys. There will be focus sessions with stakeholders. The actual creation of a job description and a profile, I think, based on what those findings come forth. So I've received some emails from those interested in participating in those focus groups, and we'll be reaching out to those and hopefully opening it up to the larger community. You know, because they do this so frequently, they'll be able to provide us with guidance just in terms of compensation and the employment contracts overall. You know, there's just a lot that goes into this. So I think a lot behind the scenes that we don't have to deal with in terms of qualifications and experience references and license as well. So there's a lot of work that kind of gets done before we even post, I think, the job for candidates. So I've included in here just some steps in the process, because I don't think anyone believes that this will happen overnight, but it is a rather long process. We are in the right timing for it after consulting with various folks in the industry, and you know, this is the time to start a superintendent search, this in terms of September. And then with a sample timeline that was provided by the MASC in terms of when those kind of key deliverables will be in terms of those things that I had mentioned earlier.
Okay. Sorry for stepping on your recommendation. So questions for Robin or Alice?
Yeah, in regards to the sample timeline that they've listed, do you think are we there, or are we behind, or a little ahead? Do you think January is a reasonable?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're behind. You know, could we be like 1 or 2 weeks off, like at different times? Absolutely. But I think that, you know, we ideally do want someone in January at the end of February, because then we can work on the transition. I mean, we don't want someone coming in like July 1st for the first time. And according to MASC, like, they think that we will get a lot of highly qualified applicants. Like, they're not concerned about that. So that felt really reassuring.
Thank you.
Yeah, they were, and thank you for bringing that up. They were very complimentary on our district and do believe that we will get a lot of interest in this position.
Good. One question, there's a reference to them orienting the screening committee on its role. And do you have a sense of the two of you talked about, or what the screening committee might look like, how many, who would be on it? Not individual names, of course, but, or is that something you're waiting to talk
spoke
with
to them a
MASC
little about it.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think there's going to be key roles within, like, responsibility of including it. I think the recommendation was not to go very big, is kind of like what we've been guided towards, but I think that could potentially shift based on some of the conversations.
Okay.
And I think, you know, like, they did stress the importance of a variety of community members. So
Yes.
it's not just going to be people within the school system or just
Yeah.
families, but in various roles.
Yep.
So.
Good. Well, it sounds like you're about ready to pressing that gas pedal.
We're going to be spending a lot of time together.
Yeah, Robin.
There you go. There you
There's
go.
a lot of meetings in September. Right?
And I was like, we're going to see each other a lot.
But that's, with help and resources you need from us or the administration, I'm sure you get that. So keep us posted, and if in between meetings you have things you need to let us know about, feel free, and we'll go from there. But it sounds like you both are off to a great start, and it's much appreciated.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, all those in favor of approving the contract with the MAS&C to consult on our superintendent search, please say aye.
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 Opposed, none. I would ask for a motion to simply allow me to sign the contract
So
as
moved.
chair.
Yep. Second.
All right. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, none. Carries. So whenever that's ready, I can sign it. Thank you both again. All right. Next item. Hey, we're on to new business. There we go. So the 2022-2023 pre-K to 12 school improvement plans.
The interim superintendent recommends the approval of the proposed 2022-2023 pre-K through 12 school improvement plans for a first reading.
All right. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and we have a second. So is there discussion or questions about the school improvement plans? We'll start with Jeff, please.
Nothing specifically. I think it ties in. When reading through them, it seems like the same thing that we talked about before, where it's more of an engagement, particularly on the academic side, motivation, the sense of community. So I think that was encouraging, right? And I think it seems like, I'd have to look a little bit more, but on the metric side, right, we have a little bit in terms of, some numbers and some things that are going to be coming as well, right? So the trackers, the AP scores, the exit interview information, I think those are going to be super helpful, right? So, I don't know. Actually, one question I did have was on the current exit interview information from alumni. What information do we currently gather from them? And is this going to be enhanced, or is it kind of the sort of the same as it goes on?
So I think right now I'd say alumni, it's more anecdotal. Our hope is to, have a more formal process and connection with our recent alumni and connect them back to the school to work directly with students. So our hope is to, more formalize those connections and integrate them into, especially for our senior class, so that they can hear from recent grads and hear about, sort of those next steps and how that worked. So, whether we do more surveys or things like that, not sure if we're going there or not, but right now our hope is to create more direct connections between recent alumni and our current students.
Yeah, I thought the piece with the parents too. So it was not only from alumni, but from their parents. So they would have a good, in terms of feedback, longer term where that's going to go. So that's good. That was the biggest one.
Thanks, Jeff. Gabe.
I guess one question, I saw strength and community block multiple times. Can you just speak to where you think it was lacking and any specific strengthening components for 2022-23?
So I wouldn't say it was lacking. I think what we're looking to do this year, and Peter, if you want to maybe talk a little bit about what we're doing, we're looking to add some specific instructional components in helping kids with executive functioning skills. So I'll let Peter maybe talk a little bit about kind of what we're moving towards for this year.
Yeah, definitely. So I think last year going in, we knew that setting up the structure of community block was really the foundation and what we were focusing on. But we sort of knew that it always had this potential to hold more in the schedule for giving students what they need. So I'll talk a little bit about my work, and then Carrie also did some work with our guidance team. to integrate some more features of Community Block for different purposes. So over the course of this year, during our MTSS data leadership meetings, which we met several times over the past year, I worked with our teacher leader team to help create a vision for an MTSS structure at the high school, multi-tiered systems of support, and how we could leverage Community Block for that. So we created a vision for that. We came up with several brainstorms to see what we think we could pilot in an effective way. And we landed on a focus on executive functioning skills for next year, where I will be working with a study group of teachers that'll meet, learn more about executive function skills that will support students in the classroom, and then will help student leaders facilitate in classrooms during Community Block to reinforce those skills. And then from there, we'll have a system of identifying students that need extra support, and the teachers involved in the study group will then provide small group intervention during that time. So as of right now, we sort of created the blueprint for this next year for the pilot. We'll be doing some more additional planning in September and October for an October launch. And then we'll assess and reflect as we go. But our hope is that since we now have this dedicated time, we're going to continue getting closer and closer to really providing students what they need in the moment. As Mary kept referencing the FAR cycle, how are we continuing to use those formative assessments that teachers are using in their classroom to provide that real-time support on a daily basis, on a cycle basis. And so that's really what we're thinking about in terms of enhancing Community Block for that academic purpose. And I know Carrie can talk a little bit about social emotional support during that time as well.
Thanks, Peter. So one other thing that we're adding is groups for students during Community Block, either social work groups or guidance groups, right? So identifying students who may need some additional support, rather than pulling them out of class, right? We can use that time to have small group intervention, have whether it be social work or guidance, focusing on grades or academics, as well as some social emotional support during that time.
Awesome, thank you. And one other comment. Oh, you're gonna.
Oh, please. Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say, not for you folks. The other component was at the elementary level. On a positive note and a very exciting note, all the work that's being done for, the science of reading, phonics, all of that reinforcement. I know the work that Julie and all of her colleagues were doing this summer, that is absolutely phenomenal. I went into the school on Friday and saw all the material and the books. And that is, I can't wait to see and hear the updates from the kids when that happens. So, thank you.
Great. Alice.
Well, now that Mary took us through her part, these make a lot more sense. So I commend each of the teams from the schools for putting them together. I guess my question for the elementary level teams is, was there any updates to your plans based on the assessments at the end of last year? So I know there's always been, a percent reading at certain grade levels. So I'm just curious how we ended the year and how that affected your school improvement plans.
We're sending Julie up to answer that question.
Julie.
She must be so sick of these questions.
No, she's good at
You've been waiting to speak all night. I know you have to.
I'll be quick. So we did analyze our end of the year reading assessment data. And that being said, we were back to almost pre-pandemic level in terms of our reading expectations. But that's not where we wanted to be. If you remember when we started the strategic plan, we had set a goal of being at 90% by the end of this year. And so we took a dip and we're back where we were pre-pandemic. So we lost that slope, that nice slope we were making. So all that being said, you'll notice in our school improvement plan for this year, it does not say, in the past years it has said using running record data at the end of the year. So you'll notice this year it says using end of the year reading data. So we're making a shift in the assessments that we're collecting at the elementary level to be more aligned with the research around reading and how our brains learn how to read. So I guess what I want to leave you with, and I can tell you more after the
after we do our first round of data, is I'm not sure how changing the assessment will affect what percent we're at. Does that make sense?
Fair.
So I guess my answer is stay tuned.
Okay.
But we did adjust, sorry, one last thing. We did adjust some of our interventionists across the district based on the end of the year reading data.
Great. Okay. And then I have a question for the middle school team about Project Hawk, because I know that that felt under the diversity, equity, and inclusion goal. There's a part in here about Project Hawk. Do you foresee Project Hawk being bigger than it currently is, that the students know it to be? It's because it's only it's not a lot of time in the whole scheme of things, right?
So we're really excited about some of the changes we've made to Project Hawk for this year. So it obviously was only once per month for half an hour, and so now it's going to be once per cycle. So roughly every 7 school days. And so with it meeting more frequently, in the past the curriculum was all developed by a committee of teachers, and we realized that that was just unsustainable to complete in the time that we had. So working with a consultant who's really well known in the Northeast, in particular around social emotional learning, named Camilla Drummond Forrester. She recommended for us this group out in New York City called the Morningside Center, and they really tie together SEL and equity and really help educators, help kids to see that they're two sides of the same coin rather than two separate ideas. And so we actually just had a training, our first training with the Morningside Center last week to help us prepare to implement restorative practices as the SEL curriculum. It's called Restore 360. It's Morningside's SEL curriculum that we'll be implementing starting in the fall. We're really excited about it.
Great. All right, that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Robin, you love this stuff, I know.
Well, no, I'm actually really excited about the reading, so I'm not going to ask any questions about that, because I've had many discussions with Julie and Mary over the year. But I think also, when families say Gabe, you brought this up earlier, like, what's going on? Like, how can I help? Like, these are published documents, and families really should be reading them, because when you want to know what's going on in your child's classrooms, like, these are things. I mean, this isn't all, but these are the main goals, right? So this is going to be the forefront, and that, I think, is a great way you should just know, but also to help and foster the discussions. I mean, it's very laid out, like, this is the goal, this is how we're implementing it, this is the time frame, this is who's doing it, these are the resources, this is where we're at. And it's really also up to families, like, it's on the website, like, if you want to know more, look, and then if you have questions, you can ask anyone about it, but it's all right there. So.
Right.
It is.
All right. I appreciate the obvious hard work and thoughtfulness that goes into these plans, and the efforts to address real things that you see. And every time we look at and go through one of these cycles, I get the feeling that you're looking for more ways to really measure what's going on and try and see if what you think is working really is working. So that's a credit to all of you. I appreciate that. Okay, so with that, this is for a first reading. All those in favor of approving the school improvement plans for a first reading, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Carries. All right, let's keep on going. Mary.
The interim superintendent recommends the approval of the 2022-2023 list of accounts and maximum balances around the student activity accounts.
All right, and this, by contextually, this is something we do every year. Just limits how much a particular account can be, how much can be sitting in the bank literally on a given student activity account.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions on the, I'm sorry, strike that. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All right, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Carries. Mary?
Okay. The interim superintendent recommends the approval of the amendment to policies AC and AC-E. And when you click on that link, you'll see that these are the policies that the Attorney General's office has revised and sent back to us. So they're around the discrimination, harassment, and sexual harassment policy and grievance procedures.
Okay. Is this also for a first reading? I mean, we just got them, so I presume it's for a first reading.
It is. And when Roseanne DePietro was in today and training the administrators on the investigatory procedures and on the bullying, harassment, and sexual harassment, civil rights policies, she said that if we make any adjustments to these policies, we have to return them to the Attorney General's office and then get their approval again. So it has to go through their filter.
Okay.
To think.
That having been said, let's have a motion for approval for a first reading.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Is there discussion? Okay, no discussion. I read through them. Generally speaking, I like exactly what I see. My only question is that I believe the civil rights coordinator Lynn is who you're proposing for the student rights coordinator. Given what the student services director typically has on her plate, do you think that you're comfortable that she can take on this additional task?
I am. Next month, we're going to present to you a little reorganization that we've done over the summer. We've hired 3 new positions at the special education office. So we have special education coordinators at the elementary level, the middle school level, and the high school level that are kind of right underneath Lynn O'Neill.
Okay.
Kind of organizing the special education activities at each of those levels. So we're going to be excited to introduce those people to you next month and talk to you more about the reorganization. But again, Lynn O'Neill wasn't here tonight, and I did want to do that without her here.
Okay.
So when I also asked Roseanne DePietro about if this made sense to have her be the coordinators of each of these things, and she said that many times in a district that there's one person that coordinates all of them.
Okay.
And then that being said, for sexual harassment, when it comes to adults, we have a new human resource director, Kim Bevan, and she'll be working on that for adults. And so Lynn will be only working on sexual harassment investigations for students.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor for a first reading, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Carries. So it's good for first reading. All right. The chair will appoint 2 school committee members to the Essex Tech Study Committee. Many of you know there have been questions about the interplay between Danvers and Essex Tech in terms of the number of students being accepted and the impact that has on our budget on an annual basis. And the selectmen, I believe in June or May, it might have been, tabled the motion that they had regarding this and asked the town manager to set up a subcommittee, sort of an ad hoc subcommittee of various interested parties to get together and talk about the situation and come up with ideas, brainstorm, look at things like the cost per student, impact of the new charter school coming into town. And he has asked us to appoint 2 members of the school committee to that committee. There will also be 2 selectmen. I believe it's 3 town meeting members. Not sure if there's a specific community person, but in any event, it'll be an ad hoc committee. Finance committee members will be on it. So kicking this around, I'm going to appoint myself to this committee. And at this point, I would like to appoint Gabe as the second person to the committee, if you're willing, Gabe.
Yes.
All right. And we'll keep you posted. The first meeting is supposed to be September. I don't quite know where it's going to play out. And my thought, honestly, is you guys are going to have so much to do with the superintendent search.
We're fine.
So no offense intended to any member of the committee. Jeff, same thing, whatever.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, so that's done. So now we move on to, one more thing. Let me just take a look. we, on our regular subcommittees, we have a couple of things to talk about. One is that the Wellness Committee is one member short. The Wellness Committee meets, what, once or twice a year? It's not often.
Yeah.
Yeah. So right now, if you are willing, Alice, if you'd like to, because it's not, I don't think, particularly heavy lifting, if you'd work with me on that committee, I'd appreciate it.
Sure.
All right. And again, hopefully not. And you know what? If it doesn't work because you're busy finding us the best superintendent ever,
Best ever.
then we'll figure it out. All right. And Mary talked with me about the possibility of combining the curriculum and equity subcommittees, and wondered how that sounds to you all. I think collectively it's Alice, Robin, and Jeff who are on those committees. What do you think about that?
I think it makes sense.
Yeah.
I felt like I was having similar conversations in both.
That's what Mary said. Yes, exactly.
I was like, wait, deja vu.
I mean, it's hand in hand, so.
If you saw our goals for this year, kind of they all are intertwined.
Yep.
Okay. So maybe at the next meeting we can talk about how that'll all, unless you have something scheduled coming up. Do you have something?
We had tossed around some dates. I don't have them with me right now, but we were thinking, 4 or 5 times a year. We
Okay.
were meeting 3, but we could add it because we're combining them, maybe a 4th meeting, and
Yeah.
then.
My thought would be get through the opening of school and then maybe do a meeting in October if that makes sense to you all. And by then we'll be able to figure out what the committee will look like. All right. Thank you all. And that's it for that. Order of business. The consent agenda, which includes the homeschool requests, fundraising requests, field trip requests. I don't think we have a budget report this month.
No, you don't.
Or donations. Do we have a personnel memo?
We don't have a personnel memo ready for you tonight. Okay.
No.
So, but we do have a donation. That
Oh,
we
that's
wanted
good
to-
news. Okay.
Yes, all right. So we want to thank Brian Crosby, who had donated a digital piano player to the district. And Alex Grover is very excited about what a great piano, in addition, this is to our music department. So yeah, I think it's in the corner. Yeah, right there.
Oh, there you go. That's great.
It's like, it is such a generous donation. So I really thank him and his family for that donation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's wonderful. All right. So, motion to approve the consent
Actually, I have
agenda.
one question.
Oh, sure,
That was
please.
okay. Mary, I
Is
know
it about the piano?
No, it's not about the piano. Although I play a mean chopstick. The homeschool requests, I had asked you about this. I was curious if you were able to compare what the number of requests were this year to previous years, if you had that
Yes,
information.
We do. We actually, last year, for families, in the 21-22 school year, we had 23 families submitting requests. And for this school year, as of last week, we had 16 families request. But when you get to the number of students, in 21-22, there were 34 students requesting homeschooling. And this year, so far, we've had 24.
Okay.
So we did get in one new request today.
Mm-hmm.
Is it against privacy law to ask why a decision is made to go to be homeschooled?
I do have meetings with new people to the homeschooling. So if someone's for the first time is submitting a request, so I can, kind of inquire.
Just curious if that's also something we should be tracking as well. Just curious.
Well, let me put it to you this way. The state of Massachusetts, by statute, has a lot of states do, a very favorable viewpoint on parents' rights to homeschool their children. Mm-hmm. And, because I remember back when I was new on the committee and I was looking at these, I'm like, why are people doing this? And the fact is, from a public standpoint, we can't talk about an individual plan. We can't talk about individual people.
I guess that's fine. I'm curious. I'm more curious if families are looking for homeschool for missed opportunities that we're not providing, or they believe the district is not providing them. That was all, I guess, is really what I was trying to get at. More so, I completely understand family and parents' decisions to homeschool, particularly now. So that's why that was the only question I had,
Sure.
is even if it's
And I think that's fair for
lawful,
Mary
I guess,
to,
for us to do
yeah,
that.
I think that's fair for Mary to reflect back on when you're meeting with people. Is there something that we can do better or more of to encourage people to come here?
Right, and I think that upon looking at the newer requests, I think a lot of them were around religious. They wanted more of a religious.
They were what?
Religious reasons.
Okay.
Education.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry.
That's been my experience too over the years. Is
Yep.
A lot of folks want to have a very direct religious education, or let's say a curriculum that includes.
Yep.
And that's the parents' right, and. Yeah, so they're good questions, and we always should be looking at, are we missing something that we can offer? But at the same time, like you say, we respect parents' rights to do what they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second? All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Just a quick question. So like the fundraising requests, I understand. I'm seeing a lot of teachers post like the Amazon wish list. Is that because is that just like they're getting what they need, right? Is that?
Yes, I believe. I
Okay, so this is just like additional thing, but they don't necessarily.
You want us to?
Am I missing something that they're not getting?
They're specific that they want for their class. We wouldn't necessarily provide for the curriculum center, like certain bulletin board things or certain, rewards for students, or I've seen lots of different books too that people want.
So it's like stuff teachers would normally maybe buy that because it's personalized but we have the money for what they need to run a successful classroom. Okay, I thought so.
Yes, what they would like as an individual.
Gotcha. Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to clarify that. I thought they had what they needed for curriculum.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Right, I just see it post. If you wanted to, I'm like, okay, am I missing something? Okay.
It's the extras that teachers historically pay for, as you know, pay for.
Right, well, I didn't think we couldn't buy curriculum. I'm like, we have that money, so,
No, you are correct.
No.
Additional discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. All right, the consent agenda passes. Madam Secretary, the minutes.
The secretary moves to approve and release the minutes from the June 13th regular meeting, the June 29th special meeting, and to approve and release the 2021-2022 school year executive session minutes.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion? No, all good. All right, motion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Carries. All right, communications. Mayor.
Yes, we have the Northeast Consortium, and at the beginning of this month, I was trained to be a board member of the consortium. So our first meeting is on September 14th.
Great. All right. Legislation, just a very, very brief report. I think the primary thing that happened recently is the State Board of Education voting to increase essentially the passing scores, the requirements for passing MCAS and therefore graduating. It'll be effective for the class of 2026. The board's argument was that according to data, they didn't necessarily say what data, the current MCAS standards have led to poor academic and earning outcomes. The con arguments that much presented by the Mass Teachers Association is that they feel that increasing the scores will most negatively impact English learners, and we have an increased number of English learners, it seems, every year in Danvers, so we need to sort of watch that and make sure that we're providing the supports, because their road just got a little bit tougher, perhaps. And they also, and this is something we've talked about on and off for years, the is the additional stress that more robust testing, higher expectations that it puts on students, is it worth the bang for the buck? Do you get that much more improvement in student learning by making it harder to graduate? I don't know. That's it's sort of an existential question. I don't know how they measure it. People give you different answers. I've never loved the constant stress on a single or even a group of standardized tests versus a holistic, way to assess how students are doing and what they're learning. And but that's just me. I don't know if anyone else has comments or thoughts or no. Okay. But anyway, that's what's going on in legislation. Other than that, our legislators are high into campaign season, so we'll see how that all comes out. Subcommittee liaison reports, curriculum and assessment. We just talked about that, and equity, policy. We know we're working on the policies from the AG, and if you want to sit down and meet with the policy committee, that's good too. We can do that. Deep. Nothing on deep? No? Okay.
No.
First meeting's this coming month, September.
I don't think we have anyone though for that because Arthur's.
That's, you are correct.
I just think that has to get updated because I thought I signed up for that.
Yeah, I think the one here is.
Yeah, this is old. Arthur's all over it.
Okay. I looked at one. Yeah, I thought when I looked for one for last month, someone had been appointed, but I'll make sure we take care of that. Danvers Cares. Anything on Danvers Cares?
No, first meeting will be in September as well.
Okay. Everyone's taking the summer off, and that's the truth. CPAC, Mary, anything going on CPAC?
Oh, the same thing. It's that they take the
Summer off, yeah. Yep. And Danvers Human Rights and Inclusion, ditto. Then we'll get back at it, I'm sure, in the fall in September. So I guess that's it. But that was an easy subcommittee report. And I reckon that's it. So next scheduled meeting right now would be the second Monday in September, which is the 12th, I think. And then we'll have a special meeting, probably remote, before then. And we'll take care of Mike Lander's appointment and anything else that we need to vote on. So we'll get the agenda up in plenty of time. And beyond that, I guess we're good. Any last items or thoughts or concerns from the school committee?
Do we want to set that meeting now?
If you all have...
Before people leave?
Yeah, we could.
Okay. So it's going to be at 7 o'clock, right? Remote one night? So.
It can be 7, it can be 6. Because it's remote, I don't think... I think we can be very flexible.
What's today?
All right, let's see.
So we probably want next week, right? Like the week of August 29th? Because that gives you time.
It would be good. We can post the agenda. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to propose just not a Friday.
I'm sorry?
I'm going to propose not a Friday.
Not a Friday? You didn't like the Friday meeting?
Well, I think people have things to do.
I stepped all over your social life. I know. And I apologize.
Tuesday the 30th?
Tuesday the 30th. That works for me.
Fine.
Is that good for everybody?
Yeah, I'll be calling in from a parking lot somewhere, I'm sure, so that's okay.
You sure? Okay.
My nights are terrible.
Is it better to do a 6 or 7 though, as far as that goes for you?
No.
Doesn't matter. Okay. Okay.
All right. If you're all good with Thursday the 30th, let's post that, Mary.
Wait, Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday.
Tuesday?
Yeah.
I've got, yeah, okay. I'm looking at September. I'm way ahead of myself. Got it. Okay, perfect.
7?
Right. I'll talk to you tomorrow. We can talk about the agenda.
Okay, good. And the time for the meeting? What time?
7.
7.
Okay.
And we'll do it virtually, unless we can't do it virtually. All right, so with that, I think that's it. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I thought maybe none of you wanted to go home. We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody, and good night, Danvers. Teachers, best of luck as administrators as school starts.
Thank
Yep.
you. Before 9, this is a record. This is a record before 9.